I'm Chris Cuthbertson, president of ACTRA Maritimes, and Kirsten Howell, the chair of our training committee here this morning as well. And Patti Davidson, as you know, stand-in extraordinaire, is joining us today. And we're going to talk about all sorts of fun stand-in stuff. And Patti has worked on so many shows. There's 60 of them, right, Patti? We were just looking at her resume there again. And many titles, I wrote some of them down, but she's worked recently on Feudal. She worked on The Good House. She was standing in for Sigourney Weaver. I know many of us worked on that show. Pure, Let's Get Physical, Mr. D, The Mist, Beethoven's Treasure Tale, Christmas with Holly, Call Me Fitz, River King, and Reversible Errors. Welcome, Patti. Reversible Errors, you're standing in possibly, was that William H. Macy on that one?
Yeah, believe it or not, it was the second time I'd been called in to stand in for William Macy, and it happened to be the same DP that was on a show called Focus in Toronto. I think that was the name of it. And William H. Macy is not very tall, and he's my coloring. And that DP said, and this is what I'm hoping to everybody to get to the point, he said, I'd rather have a good stand-in than somebody that matched and didn't know what they were doing, which is a big important thing. So I've stood in twice for men, once for William Macy, and the other, can't remember the name of the show, but Eric Stoltz. I don't know if anybody knows who Eric Stoltz is, but I've stood in for him. Yeah. And hey, he actually liked having a female stand-in, he eventually told me, because he thought it gave him better lighting. He felt the DP spent more time lighting a female than they would a male. So he paid an unbelievable attention, and I'll get into some of that later. Behind the monitors, not a lot of people do that, but he would sometimes say, okay, Patti, look to your right, look to your left. And so he could see, kind of get an idea how he's going to look in those ways. So sometimes, not very often, actors take advantage of watching the stand-ins too. So you never, and I was going to get into that, you never know who's watching you when you're in front of the camera. Now that you know who I am, if you haven't met me, years ago, the way I got into stand-in work is I got ACTRA from doing TV commercials. I had never been on a set, and I joined a background agent, which they had in Toronto, and the first thing they sent me out on was a stand-in job. I had no idea what a stand-in, I'd never done background work, and I showed up and they handed me the sides. And I thought, I just about died. I thought I had to memorize all the words. I thought I was going to have to, and I was lucky enough to have to work with somebody on that set that kind of calmed me down, showed me the ropes. And I've always been appreciative of him because I found out that I actually liked it when I found out I didn't have to act in front of the camera. So it was nothing to be nervous about. So as Chris said, I've done quite a few shows. I've stood in for some, a lot of you might not know a lot of the names, but some big actors. I'll say one of the things right off the bat, one of my favorite people, just because I was a huge fan, was standing in for Carol Burnett. And I'm afraid that if I listed the names of the people I stood in for, half of you wouldn't know who they are because they were people that were really big at way back when. But I have a picture, you won't be able to see that. Maybe you will. And that's Carol Burnett, myself, and Walter Matthau.
Wow.
And on my belt, I'm wearing a pager. That shows how long ago it was, because that's what we had to do. But if anybody, like as I say, the elevator description of what a stand-in does, if anybody asked me what my job is, I would always say, I work with a camera and lighting crew to set up the shots. I watch an actor block their, the scene, and then I copy or mimic everything they do. I mean, that is all a stand-in does. You are working with the camera and lighting crew to set up a shot. You are part of the crew. You're in this little area that's neither cast nor crew, but you're listed as background on a call sheet, but you're part of the crew. So to basically get through a day of stand-in work, if you know what a mark is, piece of T-shaped mark on a floor, and you stand on it, you are doing the basic of your job, and you'll probably make it through the day. Letting an AD call you to set and stand on your mark. That is what a stand-in does. If, however, you want to work as a stand-in, and I'm going to try to say the things to make you a great stand-in, there's just, it's more about knowing why you're doing it, and how to do it. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep looking at notes because I will, just so I could follow along here. You are setting up the shot with the camera, you're practicing the shot with the camera, and you're working with the DP and the lighting crew so that they could light you. So the important things of a stand-in right off the bat is they want a stand-in that is the coloring as close as they can get to the coloring of the actor. It's really important. There was one time on a film, mostly shot outside, that the DP asked me to start wearing a hat because I was getting tanned, and it was making a difference to him. Some people are very particular. My skin tone over the summer was getting darker than the actors. So these are some of the important things. If you're really good at what you do, it might not matter as much. So there's coloring. There's body style and size. So mostly height in that. It could be a lot of other things, but they want you as close to the height as possible of the actors. And that really, as we go on, if it's not obvious, it really is important. So a lot of females will bring, or should bring, heels to set. You might be the same height as the actor when you get booked, but I always suggest bringing a pair of heels because that actor might be wearing heels in the shot. I know men that try to, and it works, if they're off the height, they'll put lifts in their boots. And if you see that, and it might look odd, it's so that they could match the height. It makes a big difference for when camera is setting up a shot, because when they set everything up and all of a sudden the actor comes in and the shot looks like this when the actor comes in and it doesn't work. So that's why height is important. And so height and coloring are the two main things. Body size is another thing. And those are the things that are going to get you originally hired on a show. Things to keep you on the show is to know your responsibilities. One of the big things is when they call second team, they're calling you to set. Always be aware. The actors are the first team. Everybody knows. Well, I'm going to assume everybody knows that. And as a stand-in, you're referred to as a second team. So if an AD calls for second team, they want you on set ready to go. The other thing is studying the actors' blocking. Paying really close attention to what they do. I mean, really close attention to what they do. When I say getting called to set, if I could tell a stand-in one thing is when they call second team or they call you, get to set as quickly as possible. To be a great stand-in, I would say that you should be on set before they call you. And I think I often tell this to the people that I might have mentioned it to you, Dylan. Be there, know when you are needed. And I hope I could give you some insight today to know when you're needed so that the ADs never have to call for second team. I feel if they call me or they call second team that I'm not doing my job. I want to be able to be standing on my mark when they call me so I could look at them and say, yeah, I'm here. So I'm going to start off with the basic gear that a stand-in should have. These days, you need to bring a face mask. Have a pen. These are all really, really simple things. As I said, for women, have flats and have heels. Eventually, if you're on the whole show, you'll know if your actress or actor wears heels in the show, but you should be able to have heels. I've stood in, well, I guess on The Mist, the actress that I was standing in for was over 6 feet tall. If anybody worked on The Mist, I worked that whole show with the highest boots on that you've ever seen. She actually gifted me a foot massage device at the end of the show because she felt so sorry for me that I was in heels all the time. And same with Sigourney Weaver. She's very tall, and I wore the same boots on beaches and the whole thing. So would they have been better off having a tall actress or a tall stand-in? Yeah, maybe. But again, there aren't many women that in Nova Scotia that are over 6 feet tall that know what a stand-in, what's involved in being a stand-in. So again, there's the AD team and the DPs use somebody that knew what they were doing as opposed to somebody that was a perfect match. You're going to need the sides. It's one of the things that I'm sure everybody knows what the sides is. They're the condensed version of the script of the pages that you're going to, they're going to be filming that day. Those were the things that I was handed to that first day on stand-in thing. I had to memorize it. No, you don't have to memorize anything, but the sides will help you. Clothing changes. So I see a lot of stand-ins, again, to get by the minimum amount of work you have to do. You could come dressed just as you are. The difference in a good stand-in is going to have different colors to wear. It's a lighting thing. You don't have to match wardrobe on the bottom half of your body, but if you could match color of wardrobe from your waist up, it will so much help the lighting crew. They're lighting you, different colors are going to reflect differently on your face. So really important to have different colors in your bag. You'll get to know, if you're standing in for one person on a show, you'll get to know what their color tones are. I come with a trunk full of clothes, to be honest. And in that trunk full of clothes is weather gear. Know whether you're going to be inside and outside, and be prepared for anything. So again, when I get a stand-in job, my trunk gets loaded with a chair that I carry around with me. I have rain gear. Even if it's in the summer, I have winter gear, because if you're working at night in the summer, it's going to get cold. There might be one shot that you might be filming indoors all day, but it might be a place that's too small to accommodate you waiting, and you're going to have to wait outside in the pouring rain. So have rain gear, have boots, have, as I'm saying, talking to the women, have different heights of shoes. Hats, gloves, anything you might need, have it there with you. Hand warmers, sunscreen. I know here in Nova Scotia, all the craft table usually has a sunscreen available, but bring your own. Have, if they're using you as your skin tone matching the actor, and on day 2, it's totally red because you got sunburn, it's not going to be right. I also always wear makeup. You don't need makeup, but makeup, not a lot. You want to look natural like the actors, but the lighting, the camera, I'm not a lighting person, but it absorbs differently, I think. It was something somebody told me way back when, on a clean skin and a skin that has makeup on. So I always I powder myself down, just like the makeup people would powder down an actor. You don't want to be shiny. And even for the guys, this, the fact that you don't want shiny skin could help. Use your own discretion. Again, I'm just trying to say the difference than an average stand-in and a stand-in that's going to get called back time and time and time again. And you know what? It's a good gig. You could do financially quite well if you get 3 or 4 months of it's not bad. No distracting clothing. Like, just like in anything else, I have a lot of wardrobe of plain, solid colors. That's usually what the actor's in. On the mist, it was easy. There were 3 or 4 actors that I was standing in for, and the mist took place in one day. So over the 4 months that we filmed, I was usually wearing, one of those actors' clothes, a burgundy shirt with a denim shirt over top. It was really quite simple. Those off the top are pretty well the things that I can think of as far as what your kit should include. Your routine when you get on, when you're hired. I can't stress enough to be on time and be early. So you're going to get your call time. A lot of if casting is calling you to book you, they'll say report to background. I'm going to say report to set. So if your call time is 7:30 a.m., I would love to see you standing on set where they're going to be filming at 7:30 a.m. So what you would do when you get there 20 minutes early to crew parking, find an AD, usually go to base camp. So what I would do usually is get there early. I find out where the wardrobe truck is if it's my first day on set. Go into wardrobe, knock on the door. They don't like people just walking in, and introduce yourself, ask them what your actor is wearing that day. They will love you forever. Sometimes if you don't have those colors with you, wardrobe will give you what they call color cover, and they will often have a shirt, a jacket on the wardrobe truck that they just have in background stuff to give you. What I noticed with Feudal during COVID, they can't give us color cover. So it was more important for me to bring my own stuff. So that's why on those first few days of set, I have a trunk full of clothes. Look, you're not going to lose your job if you're not color matching. Sometimes you'll feel like people don't even notice the trouble you're going through to match the color. But trust me, the DP's going to notice, wardrobe's going to love you, and word gets out on set that you're being professional. So I would say it's most important to get to wardrobe in enough time to check what their wardrobe is, get that stuff in your bag or on your body, get your breakfast if you're there at call, and get to set still being on set at call. Quite often they block right at call. So call time 7:30, and they want to get moving and they want to block that scene. You need to be there to watch the blocking. Sometimes if the actors aren't ready, they do use the stand-in to block the scene. I always find that's a lot of fun, but so you want to be there. First off, first day, they're going to love you. Let me see. Yeah, not in background holding. Don't go there. So when they block, and blocking is when the actors are rehearsing, sometimes it is a private blocking, meaning it's just got to be the director, first AD, and the actors. They will call you for a crew blocking. So private blocking is the only time that you're not watching the blocking. There are times, and I wouldn't jump in yet, but there are times where I kind of get the feeling if I should be there, and I'll ask the first AD, should I be in there? If on a show you find that they're doing private blockings and then not doing a crew blocking, you need to make it known to the first AD that you need to watch the blocking. Sometimes ADs forget that you need to watch it because you really do. So when you're watching the blocking, that's when I would love to see you have your sides out, follow along on your sides, and make notes. That's why I say to bring a pen. So on the back page of every sheet of sides I have all these little T's and all these initials of the actors, and I'm putting arrows of where they're going, and so that I know when I get to set. You can't remember everything. If you're just watching one actor, and that might be the case on a bigger production, that might be the case on From with Dylan, that he'll be just watching one actor. That's great. You still want to know what that actor is doing in relation to the other actors. If they're sitting around a table talking, it's so easy. When they're going to the refrigerator and then sitting at the table, then pouring themselves a drink and then looking out the window while talking to other actors, you need to know where everybody is in relation to everybody else. Sometimes I make little notes by the dialogue of when they move. This would come in handy, especially you're not always working with a sound department, but again, sound will love you. Quite often they'll ask, when did they start to move? So that you're able to tell them, you know, on the line, blah, 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 they went over to the window. Sound will love you, and you want everybody on set to love you. So the final blocking is blocking for marks, and that's when the camera assistant will put those little pieces of tape down on all the places that the actors actually stopped. They do a great job, and most of the times they're right, but you should still know, don't rely on the camera assistant and all the marks to know. And it could be confusing if there's a lot of stops, so you'll want to know which stop they went at what time. Main female actor is usually a red mark, main male is usually a blue, and then they go from there. But you'll know the color of the mark of your actor. It won't take very long. So that's so you know where to stand. If you've never stood in before, I know it sounds really ridiculous for me to say this, but a mark is a T. You put your toes just inside the T mark so that the tip of your toes are at the T. You might find it ridiculous that I say how to stand on a mark. If your feet are over that T, they're using you, the camera is using you to do all the focus. So if you're not standing right on the mark and standing straight up and down, not leaning over, unless your actor leans over, all the focus is done on you on that mark. If you're off the mark, when the actor is going to come in, they're not going to be in focus and they're going to have to readjust stuff. So standing toes to the mark, you'll often get moved a little bit. They'll be adjusting marks. When they adjust your mark, drives camera people crazy when you look down. I know these are little things, but the camera hates that. Or don't step off your mark when somebody comes and kneels in front of you to change your mark. Just let them change it, and then you'll be standing in a new spot. They'll remark you. It's some of the most difficult things are not looking at people that are crawling around at your feet. But there's a reason why it's so particular. One of the fun things, if you learning to hit your mark as a stand-in when you're not having to, it'll kind of help you if you get a part, because you'll know all about marks and you'll know how to hit your marks and you'll know how important it is to be on your mark. If you want to be in focus, you want to hit your mark. So that's a little bit about marks and why they're so important. Study every movement that the actors make. If they're picking up a coffee cup, are they holding it in the right hand? I mean, coffee cup isn't important, but a cell phone would be. Are they answering the phone in this hand or this hand? Because that's going to affect shadows and lighting on the face. So, you'll want to know the movements. You'll want to make little notes about, because the more you could copy the act, when you get onto set, the more you copy exactly what the actors do, the better you're going to be. Feel free to consult your other stand-ins because you're going to work together as a team in getting to the marks at the same time. That's one of the things that isn't so easy to remember where one stand-in is going, and it'll come with practice, it'll come with time. Yeah, and there's a lot of crew members that rely on you for what you're doing. I mentioned cameras, number one, the lighting, the grips, the sound. They're all relying on you. Time is money in a film production, and a good stand-in can save production money. A bad stand-in could cost the money because they're setting up a shot and not, you know, when the actors come to set, it's all different. And sometimes the actors come to set and it all gets different because they change things. But as long as you're doing the right thing. When after you have done your bit, when the actors come to set, you leave. If sometimes the ADs will tell you, thank you, second team. But if they're still lighting you, you might want to just stay on your mark. It's the first AD, I hope there's no ADs on set. It's the first ADs that's trying to move production along and get things going. But if they're still using you, I tend to stay on until I see my actor arrive to set. They often don't say anything to you. When you're working on a TV series, they will a little bit more. You will often do a second team rehearsal. Geez, I just lost the words for that. So after everything's set up, usually the last thing they'll call is a second team rehearsal. And it's exactly what that is. They'll often bring in the background, so the background's working, and they'll practice everything with the second team. So that's where it's important to get your timing down. They might remark a few things. I find there's a couple of difficult things, and I might mention them off and on. I find myself timing in walking is a difficult thing to get down. Just move over. If it's a street scene where it's a walk and talk down the street, and they've got the cameras on like on a dolly on a long track down the street, you're practicing a lot walking through the motions. Some actors walk slow, you know, are they running? Are they sauntering? And I find it's a hard thing to do, but pay attention to how fast they're walking, because the dolly grip is running with the camera beside you. He knows, is he walking or is he running? And it's something that's going to take practice, something I still find hard to get. They might say half speed, meaning, you know, go a lot slower than the actor did because they're trying to get the dolly going at the beginning. So half speed rehearsal is exactly that, you know, do the walk a little slower than you normally will. The other thing I find very difficult, it takes a long time standing on your mark. Could take over an hour in some cases. Very hard to keep your focus on where your eye line should be. You know, you're starting after a while doing this and watching what's going on behind you. You really got to try to keep your eye line, and you'll be told many times, you know, take your eye line. I always am embarrassed when somebody has to tell me, but it's probably one of the things they tell me the most, because after an hour, it's hard just to stare at your other stand-in the eye and not say anything. So, and we could get into eye lines a little bit later. One of the most important things is knowing who you're working for. So there's three big things, three main people that you're working for. You're working for the DP, so know who the DP is, the director of photography. He's the one that oversees the camera, how everything looks on the set. So he oversees the camera team, he oversees the lighting team, he oversees the grips. He or she, I shouldn't. So the DP will be doing a lot of this in front of you. They might hold meters in front of you. They're doing all their lighting thing. That's the number one person that I listen to. Number two is the main camera operator. Always have your ear open for what they're saying to you, because they're the people that are going to be telling you, move a little bit to your right, move a little bit to your left, take your eye line and that type of thing. And if there's 3 or 4 different cameras, or let's say 2 cameras, main camera operator, there's a real big hierarchy through the camera team. You listen to the main camera operator before. If the second camera operator tells you to move, I would ask the first camera operator if it's okay if I move. First camera operator setting everything up, he's the main camera operator. If you move because somebody else told you to move, that messes up his shot. The idea in the camera team is, and this might not happen on every show, but on the average, the second camera has to kind of steal his shot around what the first camera operator has done. So your main focus is on the main camera operator. He's the one that you've always got to be listening to. The AD who you will hear most, you have to obey him, but he's kind of calling you to set and telling you to leave. Your main focus is the camera operator and the DP. There's a lot of times that you will be watched and you won't know it. The room will look empty, the camera operators are off, and you'll wander off or start talking or whatever. There's so many times that you don't know they're watching and using you. They're looking at the monitors from a different room. The producers, the actors, the director might be watching from another room. So while you're on your mark, while you're in front of the camera, you should always be working. So that's where I really, in an empty room, tend to lose my focus and lose my eye line. And then somebody from another room will say, Patty, take your eye line. They might have gone out for coffee and just happened to look at a monitor while they were walking by and wanted to make a tweak. So always when you're in front of the camera, know that somebody somewhere might be watching you. And it should be quiet. I know that it's really hard. There are so many people while they're setting up a shot that have to communicate. The last thing they need is the stand-ins to be talking to each other. Again, it's a really hard thing. You're standing face to face with somebody that you've been working for a month or a year, and you really shouldn't be talking to them. I know it sounds ridiculous. Some people might tell you differently, but don't read your sides. Don't pretend this is a chance for you to prove yourself as an actor. Do not go over the lines unless somebody tells you to. I'm going to tell you that. Somebody might tell you differently, but there's a lot of people, again, trying to communicate. Camera operators trying to communicate to the DP, DPs trying to talk to the director. All the lighting guys are talking. So it seems like it would be okay for you to talk. It's the last time that it's okay for you to talk, because it just gets really loud on set and nobody can hear anybody else. And there will be some ADs that will go ballistic if you're talking on set. So try, it's hard, but try not to talk on set. I'm going to take a breather. Is there any questions that anybody might have so far?
That's wonderful, Patty. Thank you.
I've got a few more things if there's some questions that somebody might have, just to, yeah. Fritzen?
Yes, hello.
Hi.
I don't know why or where I heard this, so I need clarification if it's a thing for stand-ins or not. So when you're now standing in and cast have stepped off, does blocking ever get tweaked? And then if it gets tweaked, is it your job or someone else to tell the actor that the blocking has been tweaked or changed?
You know what? That is a really great question. Okay, this is where a little bit of experience is going to come in. I feel out the situation. I would never do it your first day, your first scene with the first actor you've worked in. I remember my introduction to Sigourney Weaver. I think I said her mark had been moved quite dramatically. And I just said, your mark has been moved. I know what a mark is. You know, I was really embarrassed. Other times, and I mean, you know, I worked the show, all was good, but you learn, which it's going to be a feel. So I'm not going to give you a definitive answer. I often will tell my actor, and they will most often appreciate it. If something's changed, it is considered the director's job to talk to the actors. So I wouldn't do it right off the bat. However, there are some cases that you'll get a feel for it, the actor, as you're working on a whole show. Does that help at all?
Yeah, no, it does. That's perfect. I was just wondering if it was like, yeah, it's just good to know it's not specifically your job as well.
Yeah, specifically your job is not to talk to the actors. I remember when I first started, they say, consider the actor like the queen, only speak when spoken to. And I've kept that in the back of my mind for so many years. And as the show goes on, you know, things loosen up when they know that you know what you're doing, but they don't know if it's your first day ever on set. And especially if they're big actor, they don't want to get direction from you. Like that's my opinion. And, you know, you're trying to help. And eventually there are times where, yes, I do tell actors when their mark is being moved. It's not for us. Now, on that, it would give me a good opportunity to say, blockings might totally change when you finish, when the actor comes on. Your job isn't over yet, because you need to watch them actually filming the show, the scene, because they're going to come back, things are going to change. So if they change things once the actors get on set and the actors are doing different movements, they're doing different things at different times, because things, once everybody's on and ready to go, it changes. You should either be watching the monitors. Sometimes there's too many people at the monitors. So then you should be, if you can be not in anybody's eye line, which is really important, but watching the action on set, you'll know if things changed. Because when you go back to do a turnaround or do the close-ups, you need to do the new thing now. You need to forget everything you did before, and you need to make those changes. They're usually subtle. But so when you get off set, off your mark, your job is still not over. So then you watch, so you'll be around the monitors. And again, it's usually a crowded place. You've got to be discreet. You've got to be there all the time without being in anybody's way. There's absolute chaos going around you, especially when you're standing in. You just have to know you're doing your job and be as much there and as much out of the way as you possibly can. I mean, right down to, know the word 10-1 to go to the bathroom. I mean, I report every time I go to the bathroom. It seems ridiculous, but an AD needs to know that if quickly they need me again, I'm where I am. Let them know if you're going to the craft table, let them know if you're going to the bathroom. It's important that they know where you are. There's like so many little things that'll drive people crazy. And as you know, in a set, like, you know, they're first setting up the big shot, and then they're coming in for all the overs and the close-ups and everything. It would be good, I can go over some of the terminology, you know, if we have time, but you know, you've got to know what you're supposed to be doing and know that you're there to work with the camera and lighting crew to set up the shot. And you're a really, really valuable part of the equation. They could not possibly get their day in without stand-ins. They'd have to be using crew members, which they're not supposed to, and then that crew member's not doing their job. Another important thing, You don't have to deal with props people very much, but especially in this day, like in COVID, do not touch any of the props unless a props master hands them to you. If they're using a phone, use your own cell phone. Unless you get permission, because those things have to be totally cleaned down again before we touch them. So, and I'm sure everybody knows what a hot set is, but everything's being set up perfectly. If you're standing in at a desk or a table and there's a mug and there's stuff and there's papers, don't touch any of it. It's being placed. You know, if you want to use a prop, ask them for another one and they'll give you a stand-in prop. Don't touch anything that the actors are touching. Any other questions right now?
I'll do another
Yeah.
one. Do you ever bring in wigs?
I have worn wigs, yeah.
Okay.
So if you're willing to, or you have one and you're not the right hair coloring, I've now given away my wigs because I just don't like wearing them. But yes, I have worn wigs. Tell them you're willing to, or you have them. I wouldn't be switching them in between unless they ask me to. I've also told them I'm willing to color my hair if they need, like if that's something you're willing to do. Hair coloring is important, like coloring is important. And again, if you're good at your job, they're not going to care as much. It's true. If your actor has long hair and tied back, yeah, it would help if it's all off your face. So if you can get to looking as much like the actor as possible, as you can see, wear very shiny glasses. I wear contacts on set. I don't know if there's any other people that wear glasses in their day-to-day life. I wear contacts on set. However, if the actor is wearing glasses on a show, get some fake glasses. That's important because they'll want to see reflection. If an actor is wearing a baseball cap or a hat, ask wardrobe or bring a baseball cap or a hat. That's super important because, that's totally shading your face. So lighting's going to change if the actor comes on with a hat and you weren't wearing one. Like, this is where wardrobe things come in handy. And I know there's stand-ins that work a lot that wear whatever they feel like and they get work. I just work differently. I try to match as closely as I can to the actors. And, it's not about what color pants you're wearing. I just throw a lot of layers on and sweaters and all that kind of stuff. What else?
Yeah, I think Patti, maybe we have a couple questions here, but maybe kind of quickly, but just what's the difference between doing stand-in work and doing background work? And you've alluded to it a lot in this conversation, but your expectations when you show up for the day and when you go and do background, you can read a book, you can chat with people, you can talk, you can do all these sorts of things. You can go to the craft table when you're allowed, but stand-in is much more regimented as you've described to us. Maybe some of those differences. I know Kevin Giroir was just asking what's the difference in the pay rate between stand-in and background, and which is almost the same. It's slightly a bit more for stand-in.
I think stand-ins might make 75 cents an hour more, which is always been one of my pet peeves because we work so much harder than background workers. It's yet 75 cents more, 13 hours a day, 5 days a week for 4 months works out to a heck of a lot more than background workers, one day, background performers, one day here and there. So it makes up in longevity of the whole job. But whereas in background, you go to background holding, you get called to set when you're needed, you're told exactly what to do. And a lot of first-time stand-ins do exactly that. They go to background holding. The background holding person doesn't know any better, the AD in background holding. So they just say, okay, just hang out here with me and I'll let you know when they need you on set. And then they go to set, and everybody on set is saying, well, where's so-and-so? You know, it doesn't have background holding. It's not where you should be. There's no time. I mean, you'll see stand-ins sitting back reading a book in between shots. And if you can read a book on set, I used to be able to a little bit. I used to be able to do crosswords. My memory's just not as good as it was. I find that I do better if I just concentrate on what's going on. Don't be looking like you can have your cell phone out as a background person. You could be talking, you could, while you're standing in, while you're in front of the camera, don't be looking down at your cell phone. You know, really, you're there, you know, because they don't want to like the top of your head. Like, if they ever use the actors to set up a shot, you know, the actor might be on their cell phone talking or whatever. Well, they'll put up with that with the actor, but not the stand-in. So, whereas background knows what they, you know, there's a lot of downtime, and the hardest thing I think to move is from background, from being used to doing background and then moving into being a stand-in, is knowing that it's like 90% different. If you're going to be a good stand-in, nobody should have to tell you what to do. They will, but then that's not being a great stand-in. And what I'm trying to instill in everybody here is how to be a great stand-in, how to get all the work you want to get if you're in that height. So, Chris, if that's answered your question.
Oh, it totally has. And just so everyone knows, and you've already been saying, but this is a full-time serious job. And and Patti and I have seen so many stand-in people that were in background holding, aspiring actors, whatever, and had a look and saw what a stand-in was and thought, hey, I'd love to do that. That'd be great and everything. And then they show up and they have none of the stuff Patti's been talking about and educating everybody about today, and they get eaten alive right away. So it's a job where you're not chatting all day, you're not talking to people, you can't really take breaks in the same way you could if you're doing a background role or an acting role or anything. So you have to be very careful even when you go to the craft table. And that thing that Patti mentioned about second team, they yell that, you have to be on the mark immediately, like Patti says. And like she says, already there knowing it's going to happen, almost to the point that you're telepathically working with the AD, that they just glance at you and you're there, so they don't even have to say it. So that's the sort of attention, military precision and attention to detail that Patti does all the time. So, and we have this top echelon of stand-ins, and there aren't many of them, and they've been doing this forever, and this is why, because they're doing this. So, and I know even when I just stand in, I work with Sarah Jane Blinkhorn and everything, and we worked on a kids summer camp movie, and we were out, and someone asked earlier about little kids, standing in for little kids. I had to be on my hands and knees, and one day we were out and it was just pouring rain, we were drenched, and we filmed all day. So when Patti talks about your rain gear and your weather gear, this is what you're signed up for. So, right, Sarah?
Yeah, I remember I was in for the smallest kids, and I was taller. I mean, I'm not tall, but I was taller than the smallest kids. So I spent let's just say my thighs were better at the end of that, from like this. There was a lot of bending and
yeah, you'll see a lot of times stand-ins standing with their legs really spread apart and bending your knees to try to be shorter. And on a TV series, you know, they usually just have 2 stand-ins, and you stand in for everybody, no matter what the height. On the bigger shows, like I think The Sinner and From will probably have more than 2 stand-ins. They will want to have, at least for the main 3 or 4 characters, they'll want to have stand-ins that are a darn close match. And it can be a very lucrative job if it's something you like to do.
So how do you get some work?
Oh, well, that's the harder thing. So in the day, I used to, in Toronto, know a lot of the ADs, and I would contact an AD. Here it's casting. So the second AD would kind of be in charge of who is being hired. They'll see what the DP wants. But it's background casting that are hiring you, and it's letting them know, have a resume. I mean, if you're starting out, you don't have a resume of a lot of stand-in work, but you know, so they know you've been on set. But it's going to be letting the background casting people here in this city knowing that you know what you're doing and you've had experience. It's maybe if you're ever on set, maybe if you're chatting to first or second AD, let them know that, you know, you have some experience if they ever need an extra background person. That's, I don't know. I'm like, as I say now, it's usually, I don't always feel too bad if I try to contact production, you know, let them know I'm available or I'll contact, but they know that I've done it.
Right.
You know, I always want to be working, so they know it. So I don't know if that helps, how to get stand-in work. There's no auditions.
Yeah.
Just if they ever do call you on to set, make sure you do a damn good job, and that's how you'll get work. Yeah.
That's what I was just going to say too, Patti, that when you get the chances of coming in just for one day or whatever, with everything that Patti's been telling us today, if you're doing all of this, that's what they want to see. And it's like any other job, people have a look around and like, oh, they look like they'd be good at this, or they might have a future in this, or whatever. And it's because you're paying attention to the job and taking it very seriously. So,
and if you're on set, if you have that one day, you know, I mean, just polite little things. Thank the DP for giving you a chance if you can, because the DPs have the final say. Like if they're taking your resume and they've got resume of 3 or 4 different people, they're going to take it to the DP and see who he wants. And sometimes there are interviews for stand-in work, and you'll be interviewed by probably the DP. So if you have the opportunity to be on set without bothering anybody, and if you are a stand-in for the day, I'd make sure that I really acknowledge the camera operator and the DP as, you know, thanks. You know, I'd love to be back on your show again. Thank the first AD, like just those things you would normally do if you want to get a job at something. Be nice to people. And it does make a difference to be crew friendly. I used to be told I got a job because I was crew friendly. In other words, you just kind of get along with everybody. And that's important. And remember, you're not there to be auditioning for an actor's role. I think because I came from a modeling background, got into actor from doing TV commercials. So I'm not a trained actor. I have had actor roles a lot from being the stand-in. It's not what I wanted to do, so I'm not auditioning in front of the camera. Don't audition in front of the camera when you're standing in. Do not act. They don't want you to be acting. They want you standing. So.
And this is a full day too, Patti. So we're all used to going to shows like 22 minutes and doing a day of background, and being in and up 2 hours and everything and stuff. You can't have anything else going on, right, Patti? You
cannot. You cannot. You can't
even
have
use your phone to get on the internet to check out your messages, like Patti said earlier and stuff. Like you can't do any of this stuff. So you were there 12, 14 hours, whatever it is, generally speaking, but for the most part.
Yeah. Be ready for that, Dylan. Yeah, you really do. You're there just as much as the rest of the crew, and you are part of the crew. You eat with the crew, not with background. You are part of the crew, and it can be a real fun experience, and you can learn a lot, and you can make really good money if that's what you're into. But it's a long day, and sometimes it's a long day of standing out in the rain. Or I think when I took a break, got my realtor's license, and then found out I really missed the film. But I think it was a show called The River King or something. It was snowy, and it was cold, and it was wet, and it was in the winter. And I just hated being outside freezing all day long. And I thought, I've got to do something different. But, eventually I missed it and got back into it. But anything?
Absolutely.
Patti, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I put it in the chat too, but I was wondering if you have a heels brand recommendation, because I hate wearing high heels. And so if you have a brand that's more comfortable, what do you wear on set?
Oh, you know what? I wear these big high boots that have a big platform in the front. Like, if you know, the heels here, the front is here, so you're not, you know, you don't, it was the summer and I'm wearing clunky boots with shorts, you know, it's not, as a stand-in, I wasn't concerned about looking good or fashionable.
Yeah.
So stiletto heels probably won't work as well, because they're going to be really uncomfortable. And then have your flats to switch into afterwards. But I hate to say, but it really does, the more money you spend on shoes, the more comfortable they're going to be.
Yeah.
But as I say, I try, you know, they even have those running shoes now or they did, that were big.
Yeah.
Like those would be better. I don't have to wear heels very much because I'm more often taller than I should be rather than shorter. You know, that 5'7" is kind of with a lot of female actors that I stand in for, is the kind of thing. I'm like 5'7.5" now. So that's, I don't have to wear them, but as I say, I will find something that's got a big platform up front and a heel if I'm to get, you know, as comfortable as you can, because I couldn't be in like stiletto type of things all day.
I hate heels. I hate any kind of heel now. I can't do it.
And the more I'm wearing sneakers, the more I'm the exact same way. But quite often you will find, like, you know, you'll need to have some, but you know, quite often the actress isn't going to be in if you're booked at the same height, she's not going to be wearing high heels all the time anyway, because she wants to be comfortable.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
I like that sneaker idea. There are a lot of now of those thick, really thick sneakers are.
Yeah. And the whole platform. Oh, and again, stand-ins, our crew, you cannot wear slingbacks. Guys, no slingbacks and open toes. No slingbacks or open. Yeah. So you have to have a proper heel and you have to have a proper toe on any shoes you wear, because you're considered, it's a safety thing. And as background, you can wear open-toed stuff, but not as a stand-in. You are following all the rules. And don't run on set. It's not safe. I know when I say hurry to set, I don't mean run, because again, it's a safety thing. But yeah, open toes, be as safe as possible. And there's all, I think, Kiki, I think the big chunky shoes are kind of back in, chunkier heels and everything. So you're going to be able to find more and more stuff like that if you need them for stand.
It's all Spice Girls. It's all Spice Girls platforms now. Again.
Is that what it is?
I can't stand it, but you know, you got to do what you got
to do. Yeah. And anybody else have anything they were dying to find out?
That's fabulous, Patty. I know we're getting ready to wrap everything up now. So if anybody has any last questions. I know earlier, Patty, it was mentioned a little bit in the chat too. People were wondering about the actor that you're working with and about how you talk to them, or should you be telling them stuff? And you were telling us about that. And I know I've seen many, you showed us a picture earlier, but Patty, with these actors that she works for, there's a trust relationship, I think, that gets developed. And to the point that, you know, Patty might have the extra sides in her pocket that she gives the actor when they ask, but they know over time. So I've seen, as much as what Patty said earlier, if you're doing it like Patty has so professionally for so long, you learn how they respect you as a person, and you can tell them that the blocking's changed a bit or do whatever. But as Patty also said, there's all sorts of fun, interesting actors that are out there that have become famous for certain reasons, and some of them are brash and outspoken, and also, so you never know what you're going to run into that way.
You could become their, you know, not their friend, but you could become closer to them, but it's not something that you try to be. Like, really, they are like when you're doing background work, you're not talking to the actors. you're not talking to them when you're doing stand-in work either, unless, you know, somehow you feel out, they come to you, they talk to you, because they are concentrating on they're thinking what the director said, they're concentrating on the line. And one of the big things is they're coming onto set, you're leaving. So you're never really in the same spot at the same time. So, you know, it's just, they thank you often in passing. But that's it. You know, it's just as a little funny aside, I stood in on a show called, a TV series called Doc, and it was starring a guy called Billy Ray Cyrus. Shows you how long ago it was, where I used to collect picture, like actors used to carry their glossy head sheets around with them, and at the end of the show they'd sign autographs and everything. So Billy Ray Cyrus signed one, and it says, "Thanks for being such a good friend to Miley." So Donald, my husband, is always joking because Miley Cyrus at the time was 5, 6, and she'd come and visit her dad on set, and he would put her with me, either hair and makeup, or she'd hang out with me. And, you know, to the point where one time he asked if I'd come over and babysit her. I refused. I know it sounds weird, but it was Saturday night and I work all week and I didn't want to work again on a Saturday night. Plus, I didn't want the responsibility of babysitting for an actor's child. It was just something that I didn't care to do. But it was kind of funny where Miley Cyrus has become the big star, and I've got this little thing saying, "Thanks for being a friend." But they, you know, when you get to know some of them, they have a lot of quirks. I've like a lot of funny stories, and some of them are great to work for, some of them are horrid, and you just get to know who's who, and it's lovely. Like working on Feudal last summer, I actually rented a cabin in Hubbard's, and I loved that show so much because it was like one big family. It was a lot of Canadian actors, you know, we're in Hubbard's, we're at the beach, and a lot, some of us were staying, you know, in the area. And I mean, it was a fabulous show. So it's coming back as Moonshine. So it'll be back this summer, and it's a great show, great crew, as they all have their good and bad points. But one of the things I really want to make sure that I say to everybody, if you get booked, if you have any questions, if you want to talk to me about anything set or stand-in, I've been, as I say, I think I've probably been standing in since before some of you might have been born. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm so willing to help. I want everybody to be great at what they do. And I want you to enjoy it. Yeah, Pam?
We learned lots and lots, and
my pleasure. Thank you. I hope you did. I hope if you picked up one thing from what I said, then it's been worth it.
Absolutely.
Great.
I learned a lot today. Thank you so much.
You learned something?
Oh, yeah.
That really makes me happy.
Oh, yeah. Tons of stuff.
Thanks, Patty.
a wonderful session, Patty. And Kevin Giroir said thanks for getting him all set up so he's not going to get fired on his first day of doing stand-in work. Right, Kevin?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Kevin.
Much better confidence.
Doesn't want to be part of that club.
Yeah, I've got 3 pages of notes here, buddy.
Oh, good. And for a guy that's on set a lot, see, I sometimes don't realize that all the other people don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, this is excellent. Thank you, Patty.
Great.
Have a wonderful Saturday, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for spending time with me.
Thanks, Patty.
Thanks so
Patty.
much,
Wonderful.
Patty.
Thanks.